The only game it plays is an eternal game is evolution, evolving and growing, right? That's the only game it plays. It just wants to evolve and experience itself.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State podcast. I'm your host, Dr. V, triple board certified MD and performance and longevity expert. And on today's podcast, I have a really special guest talking about coming out of the Matrix. We've all seen the movie The Matrix, right? We have a character named Anderson who's basically living in a world where everybody seems to be in some sort of a program, until he actually reaches Morpheus, who gives him the option of taking a red pill or a blue pill. And he takes the red pill to find out truth. And what he discovered is that he was actually living in a world where everybody was programmed into this thing called the Matrix. And taking the red pill allowed him to pop out of the Matrix to see what the world was really like. Have you ever decided you wanted to do something, but something is holding you back? Have you ever wanted to reach a goal in health, in relationships, in business, but have something holding you back? You ever wonder where all those negative thoughts that you have, your limiting beliefs come from? Well, biologist Bruce Lipton actually says that The Matrix is not a movie, but more of a documentary. And what he meant was this: we actually have a part of our brain, a primitive part of our brain called the default mode network. The default mode network is actually one of the very first operating systems in our entire nervous system. What it does from when we're in birth all the way up to about the age of 8 or so is taking on information. What's right? What's wrong? What's good? What's bad? Its primary role is to create an autopilot that will keep you safe, that will help you survive. Now, here's the thing. When you touch a hot pot of water and you pull back, well, what's allowing you to pull back so quickly? Well, it's things that you've learned. It's things in the default mode network. So it picks up your pain and trauma. So all your past hurts, your betrayals, time you felt unsafe, it remembers that and it puts it into the system. Many people call the default mode network as the seat of the self or the ego. It's take everything that's happened and it refers it back to yourself. So it relives the past. It worries about the future. It thinks about other people. It's that constant thing going on in your mind when you're not paying attention to anything. And here's the other thing. All the disempowering stories, I'm not worthy, I'm not enough, all these limiting beliefs sit in the default mode network, again, because it's there to keep us safe and surviving, not thriving. That is the autopilot. That's what's going on in your mind when you're not actually focused on anything, when you're not in flow. Now, our next guest says that it is our awakening that is actually the hero's journey. That when you yourself take that red pill and awaken, see that there is a default mode network going in the background of your mind, you could actually start choosing to live life from a different place, to start playing infinite games. So I can't wait for you to dig into this episode. Now, if you haven't already, and if the podcast has given you value, please support the podcast by giving it 5 stars at ratethispodcast.com. If you haven't picked up a copy of my book yet, you can go ahead and get free chapters delivered right to your inbox at thrivestatebook.com. And also, you can choose to participate by taking the online Thrive State Accelerator course by going to kienvu.com/accelerator and using the coupon code podcast25 for 25% off. My next guest is a very dear friend. I actually met him during my own spiritual awakening as I was doing the work to discover who I really was and to see that I was living in the Matrix myself. He was a successful entrepreneur, real estate developer, and had his own boutique investment firm. He had a 20-plus year career and did business in excess of $3 billion spanning 4 continents. He's graduated top of his class, 10% at the Wharton Business School. He made it into the executive suite, being the top 1% at GE at the age of 34 and was paid millions because he had the talent for making a lot of money for GE and later for his investors. So like me, I got to the point where I was super successful in my interventional radiology career. And then I had suffered health consequences, being fatigued and just being burnt out. He's had the same. He didn't listen to a call to go within, and his life started to fall apart, culminating in a divorce and a wrecked business. And it was his fall from grace that was his greatest gift. At that point, he went within. He took the red pill. He found out how to get out of the matrix. And it was basically in that gift that forced him to go within to now understand how to tap into new levels of success, abundant health, and happiness. He now works with high achievers to have them achieve peace, happiness that money cannot buy. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my guest and friend, Robert Althuis.
I think all of those. I remember, it's in my book actually. I flew back from, my headquarters were in Colombia at the time. I had a lot of different holdings there with my investors, and I flew back. We had just closed this deal. I'd made a lot of money. And it was kind of like this last flight back from Bogota. I closed my office, sold everything. And I was like, I was sitting there up front, first class, and maybe a glass of champagne or whatever in my hand. And I was like, I should be celebrating right now. Like, I should be on top of the world, right? Mm-hmm. I did it, man. I lived the American dream. I came here 20 years ago with $70 in a duffel bag. Mm-hmm. And, I did it. I'm on top of the mountain. And I remember thinking like, well, why the fuck do I not feel, I feel empty. I feel like unfulfilled. I feel like, why is this? Like, and it was kind of when I stopped, because I was always so busy that I just didn't really have time to think about it. I mean, that feeling was there and I was numbing it in all kinds of ways, but I didn't really have any time to stop and think about it. And now I had this time and, 80% of my workload fell away. And so I had more time to be at home and just sit there and think. And I was like, man, what's up with this? This doesn't make me happy. Like, I'm not happy. I'm not fulfilled. I'm restless. I feel like, this can't be the purpose of life, to just keep chasing these things. We are caught up in our Western society, especially, but the East is kind of converting to Western standards too, in these finite games. And what defines a finite game? Well, you have a beginning and an end. You have several players because you can't play by yourself, right? And we're going for trophies. And if we can't win the trophy, we like to be ranked. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about it, we're all mostly caught up in playing these finite games. Now, these are the games man play, right? And we get all caught up in it, and we get all lost in it, and we think it's really important, and we think it's like, prestige and money and rankings and trophies and titles, and we think that's like really, really important. Now, the universe, God, creator, God, spirit, whatever the hell you want to call it, right? It plays one infinite game. It has no beginning. It has no end. There's no specific trophies or rankings to achieve. Mm-hmm. The only game it plays is an eternal game, is evolution, evolving and growing, right? That's the only game it plays. It just wants to evolve and experience itself. And, the goal is to purify ourselves as much as you can. And we have huge capacity for that. Right? Now, here's a really key thing. If you must play a finite game, you cannot freely play.
This episode of the Thrive State podcast is brought to you by the Thrive State Accelerator. The Thrive State Accelerator is actually a home course that I developed using the exact same techniques I work with my celebrity clients, CEOs, and executives on how to get them to the Thrive State. The Thrive State Accelerator teaches you how to master your 7 bioenergetic elements. That's sleep, nutrition, movement, stress and emotional mastery, relationships, our thoughts and mindset, as well as purpose. In this Thrive State Accelerator, you're also going to get a bonus module on optimization. That's how I talk about supplementation, peptides, all the optimization techniques I use with my clients to get them to the Thrive State. Now, for some of you who are just joining us for the first time, you guys might be wondering, what is the Thrive State? Well, the Thrive State is actually the energy, the epigenetic environment we give to ourselves, telling our DNA how to act and how to respond. And if we want optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, if we can master these 7 bioenergetic elements, our ability to have those 3 things that we just said, optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, is at its greatest. And it also prevents you from getting chronic symptoms like brain fog, being overweight, feeling sluggish, acne, pain, all these chronic symptoms, as well as preventing you from getting chronic disease. So getting to that Thrive State is really getting to that state to master being that very best version of yourself so you could show up for you, for your family, for your business, everything that's important to you. So go ahead, check it out right now at kienvu.com/accelerator and use coupon code podcast25 for 25% off. Now back to the podcast.
Listen, I got divorced in 2017 and my ex-wife got the house, and I downsized too, and I wasn't living with my parents, but I downsized significantly, and things changed, and I think that was the easiest part for me to kind of let go in the beginning, because I really wasn't interested anymore, and I still had some business, I still do.
Right.
But the interesting thing is what I realized really early on, which was more isolation, because, I lived here in a prestigious Miami neighborhood where everybody is really, interested in that.
Yeah.
And, I lost interest in that. I saw the folly in it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so just like you said, living with my parents, what are they going to think? And if you really take just a step back, you're like, this is crazy. So we actually think where we live, where a bed is, that defines us in any way.
Mm-hmm.
You're an eternal being that is on this evolutionary path that's doing a journey in Earth School as the persona Kien.
Yeah.
Right? So when we start looking at life like that, it's like, really, if anybody cannot, if that's important to somebody, good luck, I don't care. And, I think we really, it's not easy, but if you want to be free,
mm-hmm.
you have to go through that process. Yeah. You have to let go of these attachments that these things say anything about you. There's been so much happening, right? And we've got so much division in society today. And we just had obviously a very controversial ruling last week, and that triggered a lot of people in both sides, right? Yeah. And, here's the thing, and I'm not really talking about that, but there's just so much happening in the world that's it's triggering. It's like, it's a emotionally volatile time. There's a lot of chaos in the world. There's a lot of shit that doesn't seem to be going that well, and recessions and wars and rulings, and, so we're all swimming in that, right? This is it's a choppy part of the river right now. Mm-hmm. And calm waters will return. It's just life. It oscillates. We're in a very chaotic period right now. Major transitions, just had the pandemic, And so the first thing I would like anybody to know, that when you get triggered, when there's emotion or mental anguish, rage, whatever comes up, the first thing I want you to tell you, that's not me.
The very last question I ask everybody is, certainly with everything that you've gone through in the past, and I know you've done a lot of work, what has been your best medicine?
Self-love.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we can't really go anywhere in life until we can forgive ourselves and learn to love ourselves. And with all my flaws and all my imperfections, it's okay. That's the place where it all starts.
That's right. Self-love. I hope you enjoyed those highlights from this week's Thrive State podcast. To hear the full episode of the podcast, you can listen at Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are heard. Now, if you're enjoying the content, please help this podcast grow by leaving us a review at ratethispodcast.com/ThriveState. Also, if you really want to get into the Thrive State, people ask me, where do I start or how do I get deeper? Well, here are a few resources for you. Number one, you can pick up 3 free chapters of my book at thrivestatebook.com. In addition, if you want to go a little bit deeper, get to meet myself and my team, and get some online coaching, we have an online course called the Thrive State Accelerator. It's the same material I go through to get my clients into the Thrive State. Go to kienbu.com/accelerator and use the coupon code podcast25 to receive 25% off. And yes, I am a concierge physician at the VU MD Performance and Longevity Clinic. I have a very small concierge practice, but if you or somebody you know may want to be a client, consider applying at kienbu.com/VUUMD. And until next time, remember always, always, always that you are your best medicine.